Hey, another edition of EdTalks. This one's about myself, maybe the most important video I've done. And you should know all my videos are unscripted. I just kind of go with the flow. So I'm always hoping that it all makes sense and it's coherent. But I want to tell you what really drives me, what's at the center, what's at the core of my life. And I'm always hesitant to share a little bit, not because I'm ashamed at all, but it's because I know I don't live up to the measure of which I'm called. And the fact is that, I'm a Christian. And I was raised by two wonderful parents, although they didn't necessarily have a very good upbringing because they're Holocaust survivors. One of them a concentration camp escapee. But I don't know. God captured my heart along the way. So my mom's Catholic, my dad's Jewish. So I just feel a kinship with the people of Jewish heritage, of which I am. And so I have a great kinship with that. But ultimately, I found my faith as a Christian, and it came about when I was really young. I was a teenager, and I was raised right as a Catholic, and I went to church. I was an altar boy, Catholic youth group. I was confirmed, did all those things. I never necessarily had a relationship, which what I would call a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, but I knew of him. I studied him, and I understood him, and I know he touched my heart and was speaking to me. But I never understood this concept of like having a relationship with him. And how that would drive me. And again, I know I don't measure up. So that's why I'm not like super, and I don't want to ever be pushy with my faith. I'm always careful not to, but at the same time, I'm not going to hide my faith either. But all the principles that you hear that I espouse, find their basis in Christ and in the scriptures. And so I just want to share with you sort of what led me down that path really quick. I was this rebellious kid, again, loved, went to church, but I was this rebellious kid. I got arrested a couple times as a teenager, and I was flunking school all the time, and I was just hanging out with the wrong people. But I know God had me, right? He still had his hands on me. And so this would happen. This is my yearbook from my sophomore year. So I went to a high school that was, the last 3 years, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So 10th grade, got the yearbook end of summer, right? And I just knew there was more to life. And I was reading what my friends wrote. Some of them wrote quite a bit, and none of it had a lot of deep meaning. And I just felt like an emptiness. Like, man, I mean, I've got a number of friends, but there's just something missing. I couldn't really articulate it, but I know God spoke to me. Where it's one of those like you hear this voice type thing, and it was while I was looking through my yearbook, and I actually sort of dog-eared the pages, but put these yellow tabs in it as well. And I felt like God asked me. I know it's going to sound weird to some of you, and that's okay. But I felt like God asked me, well, Ed, what would make you happy? Because I was sitting there, I was like, oh, I'm not super happy. So I felt like he asked me. So I was like, I was flipping through. I was like, car. It's funny that it's a gremlin, right? Who would have put a gremlin in a yearbook? But it was orange and our colors were blue and orange. I thought if I had a car, right? Because I got arrested for driving when I was 14 years old. What's that called? Joyriding. And so one of my punishments was I could not have a car. So I couldn't use the family car. So I was like, man, if I had my own car, that'd be pretty cool. Then the next thing I came across is as much as I grew up as a soccer player, that wasn't as popular in high school at the time. But John McEnroe and Bjorn Borg and Jimmy Connors were all the rage, because Wimbledon, the US Open, stuff like that. So it's like I turned the page to the tennis team here, and I was like, man, if I could be on the tennis team, have fame, right? So the first was like materialism, like have a car. The next was like have fame, and then I was like totally enamored with this young lady named Jingles. So they named her Jingles because she wore these little bells on her shoes, and then she's one of these really cute people in this picture. But I could never get her, right? Because she was like this beautiful person and I was like, average or less or whatever. So it was really hard. So it's like I wanted that. And then I came across another picture with a stash of cash. And I was like, if I could have money. So that's what it. I made this bargain with God. I was like, yeah, if I could have fame, tennis team, whatever, and if I could have that girl, and then if I could have money and I could then buy a car, my life would be set. I'd be a happy person. And this is what happened. This is no joke. This is my senior yearbook. I'll just show you one picture just to save time. But I went out for the tennis team and I can't go into it because of time, but I made the tennis team and then made the newspapers. I got all sorts of memorabilia in my yearbook, made the local papers and I went to state or districts number 2 and all that kind of stuff. So I had everything and I got this great job. So in addition to being a soccer ref where I was making a ton of money, I also got a great job for a high schooler, made a bunch of money, bought the car and had the fame. And then I took that big risk and I asked that girl out and we started hanging out. And at the end of that year, I had everything. And I was still empty. I mean, there was some happiness, but there was no joy. I was like, dang it. Like, what is it? What's it going to get? And then sure enough, I go off to college and I was drinking really badly and I spent all my money drinking. The car I bought turned out to be a dud. It was a Chevy Vega with aluminum block engine that melted. And so I was no longer famous, right? Because I went from a 3,000 student, whatever it was, high school to a 33,000 university, and I was a nobody, even though I wore my leather jacket. And so all those things were gone, and I was like totally broken. And at the same time, one of my older sisters, who I was pretty tight with growing up, she had gone off to college ahead of me a few years, and she came back and she was like, and I found my life. I found my life in Christ. And I was like, what are you talking about? I gave her a hassle, but I knew she was praying for me. That was the other thing. I was a lot of people, a lot of her friends were praying for me. She'd say, I've got this brother who's lost and we need to pray for him. And so my freshman year, first semester, actually, it was September 23rd, 1982. I just said, what the heck? What do I got to lose? My life isn't going anywhere right now. I'm freaking drunk and I'm flunking out of college. It's like, what do I got to lose? What's the worst thing that could happen? So I took the dive. And then as I was working through that, still trying to go from this drunken life and flunking out to this new life and trying to live clean and become a better person. I made another deal with God. I was like, went off for home for Christmas break. I was like, God, give me a sign. Like, if this is all real, it seems kind of real, but I don't know. I'm 17 years old. At this point now, I'm 18. I'm 18 years old. And so I got back to college early January, and I walk into my dorm room, and then three of my, it's like a quad. So like my three roommates, they were all like, hey, how do we become Christians? I was like, what? They had listened to some music I left in our stereo system, and they were moved by it and they were ready. And here are four 18-year-old guys, we just like held hands. It was the oddest thing. And I couldn't even really articulate, like, how do you become a Christian? But I knew enough to say, yeah, look, God made us. We're imperfect. God's perfect. There's a gap. And to close that gap, because God's merciful, he sent his only son, Jesus Christ, to fill that gap. And if we ask Christ into our heart, if we give our life over to God and let him be Lord of our life and accept Christ's sacrifice for us, then we bridge that gap and can have communion and be with God. And so that's all I knew. And we held hands and cried and boo-hooed and we all became Christians that night. I'll never forget it. And that was a sign. And after that, but it's not to say that my life has been all roses. It hasn't been. I've made some stupid decisions. I've failed many times, but God's grace is still there, lifts me up, picks me up, and like, come on, Ed, you know better. You can do better. I'm here to help you. And so each time I sort of learn and then try to get better. It's very like this, but hopefully with the upward, motion. But that's my life. And so when people say, Ed, or good things, there's certain people who say not so good things. I get it. But the many who say good things, I'm just so thankful because I know it comes from God. Like he purified my heart. My heart wasn't always soft and now it's soft. My heart was always loving and now it's loving. My heart was not always about people and now it's about people. Again, I still have a long ways to go. I'm not there. It's a part of a journey and that's what it is. It's a relationship and it's a journey and we're always learning and trying to press in and learn more and just get closer to Christ. So it's never done, but man, it's been something else. I can't imagine living life any other way. And I love all faiths. Trust me. I know that God's calling people. So I don't have any prejudice or discrimination against people of other faiths. I get it. We're all on this journey. We're all seekers, but that's my story. And so I just convinced over the years, I've had so many miracles in my life that I could scientifically prove the existence of God if I needed to write it all down for someone, because maybe you could explain away one or two by chance, but not all the different miracles. And I just know how things have rolled in my life that God is real, and I will continue to love him, pursue him, try to live the best way I can. It's tough sometimes, but that's it. That's my story. That's my best Ed Talks ever because it's straight from the heart. And I just wish nothing but everyone to have a similar experience. The peace you get, the confidence you get, the blessings, just knowing that you are his, you are someone's, you are his beloved. And that's all you need for your identity. I don't have to have my identity in anything else. It doesn't have to be in the cash, a car, a woman, fame. My identity is in Christ. And That's all I need. So you could take away all those other things, and they have been taken away before, and I'm good because I know him and he knows me. If I can ever help you, if you ever have questions about that, I'm always around. My favorite topic. And I'm telling you, everything, again, that's what I was trying to articulate. All the accolades people give me, all the nice things they say, I'm like, man, anything good in me, that comes from Christ.